Everybody.
Good evening.
Oh, thanks. It's good to see you guys. I'm Nelly. I'm the middle school youth minister, and most of you know that. And I broke the stand. This is week 2 of our Awake series, and we don't want to be people that are sleepwalking through our lives. We want to be people who are awakened to our story and to God's story. So this is week 2 of that. Thanks, Thomas. While Thomas is fixing my life, if you want to look to the screens, Joel, the author of the book, has a vlog video.
The book Awake came about realistically when I was 18. Is kind of when it started. I tell the story in the book of going at 2 in the morning, waking up after this nightmare, true story, and just freaking out. And I had this phrase in my head that I thought would change everything in my life. I opened the journal. I wrote out the words "Do it for the story" on the first page on the top. The second thing I wrote, I didn't put in the book. I didn't tell this story, but the second thing I wrote, I believe was as meaningful in my life as the first thing I wrote. It said, no matter what happens, no matter what choice I have to make sure that every year is better than the last. And I don't think I was that brilliant when I wrote it. I think I was thinking about adventure and story and kind of adrenaline rushes and that kind of thing. But realistically, as I've grown older and kind of began to understand what that statement should mean, what do I need this year in my life to grow more, to be more, to experience more, to know God more, to know myself more, to love more? What do I need to do to make sure that this year, right now, puts last year to shame? And it doesn't mean I have to have a bigger adventure, I have to jump off something, I have to get an adrenaline rush, although that might have been what it meant at one point or another. It means, what do I need? What do I need to happen? What choices do I need to make to grow? And that's been something that's been kind of this amazing journey of each year truly has gotten better than the last, and it hasn't been this gimmicky saying.
Here's the question that I want to begin with tonight is, how do you measure a life? Like, what gives a life value and worth? What makes it worthwhile? I mean, some of the options that we sometimes judge by are things like money. How much is a person worth? Like a sports celebrity, how much are they worth in their value? Maybe money is something that we judge a value of a life by. Maybe it's success and achievements, like Olympians, like Michael Phelps. That's my American culture right there. Or by maybe how many places we've been, the states or countries that we've been to in a world. So how do you measure a life, the value and worth that it has? More importantly, how do you measure your life? Like, what gives your life value and worth? Some of the things that we sometimes tend to do is, well, how many friends do I have will decide what my life is worth. Or the place in the sports team that I have, that will decide what I'm worth. Or how many likes I get on my Instagram selfies on Selfie Mondays. That's a way that we... Selfie Sundays. I do it on Monday, I'm sorry. Or things like our grades. We judge our life by how successful we've been and how well we've done in our grades. How do you measure your life? One of my favourite people he used to be a Catholic priest. He passed away a few years back. His name is Henry Nouwen, and he says this about measuring your life. He says, "We live in a world filled with voices that shout, 'You are no good. You're ugly, you're worthless, you're despicable, you're nobody,' unless you can demonstrate the opposite. These negative voices are so loud that it is easy to believe them, and it leads to the great trap, the trap of self-rejection. When we come to believe in those voices that call us worthless and unlovable, then success, popularity, and power look like attractive solutions." Nouwen says that we live in a world that says, prove yourself. Your life, the worth of your life, depends on you proving that it has worth and that it has value. And I know lots of you feel that pressure, and I feel that pressure, that you're not worth something unless you can prove it. And boy, does it hurt whenever you feel like you're worthless. Boy, does it hurt whenever you feel like you've failed and you haven't made the mark, and you listen to those voices that say, you're no good, you're ugly, you're worthless, you're despicable, and it hurts so bad. It hurts when you see something on social media that somebody has written about you, and they've gone behind your back and it says something mean. Boy, does it hurt. Or when the boy or girl you like doesn't feel the same way about you, or there's a breakup. Or whenever I was 15 and I so badly wanted to get into the regional soccer team, and I never got a shot at it, and I went straight to the toilets of the place and I cried, because boy, does it hurt when you feel like you're not good enough. Boy, does it hurt. It feels like death. And so it's tempting to measure the value of our lives by the accomplishments or by the things that we haven't accomplished, by our failures. That's one way that we can measure our lives, by proving ourselves and proving to the world. But if we do that, maybe we're missing out on what it means to really be alive. Whenever I think of the moments that I felt truly alive, I think of whenever I was cliff jumping on the north coast of Northern Ireland and I'm 40 feet on this ledge over the ocean, cold, jellyfish infested ocean, and I'm saying to myself, don't think, Nelly, just jump off the ledge. Don't think about it, just jump. And telling myself over and over again until I just step off the ledge into the ocean and experiencing this awesome moment where I broke through a fear and I did something that just felt awesome, and I'm bobbing in the sea with the jellyfish, and it's just this awesome, wondrous moment. Or whenever I was watching my favourite band, the Foo Fighters, and singing along to My Hero, my favourite song, with thousands of other people in Dublin, just caught up in the ecstasy of the moment of cheering on and singing along with my favourite song. Or a few weeks back, whenever it was snowing, and I just walked outside the house and just walked around my house just like, wow, it's snowing. This is awesome. Or whenever I got to see my baby nephew for the first time at Christmas. Those moments when you feel truly alive. Or yesterday when my under-14 soccer team in the Y scored in the last minute to equalise and make it 4 each. Those moments that make you feel like you're infinite. When you just like, my life is awesome and I feel so alive. We can measure our lives by trying to prove ourselves and prove that we have worth. Or maybe there's a different way. Maybe we should value our lives by how well we embrace our story. Those moments when we have wonder and beauty and we feel so alive, maybe those are just as significant as any grades or any number of likes that we can get. The moments of beauty and wonder when we feel alive, and even the moments like whenever I got rejected from the soccer team, even those moments, how well I embrace those moments of failure and what feels like horrible pain and horrible death. What if my life was valued by how well I lived into my story? Let me introduce you to Will Hunting. The movie Good Will Hunting features the main character, Will Hunting, and he is an orphan. He's never had any formal education, but he's a genius, and he can solve math equations that the top professors have struggled over for years, and he can solve them in an instant. The top business companies in America want him to work for them. The US government wants him to work for them because of this gift that he has. Will is required to see a therapist as part of his, he's been released from prison after an assault. He has to see a therapist as part of his release. And he thinks he knows more than the therapist. He thinks he knows everything there is to know about life. But watch this clip as the therapist exposes something about Will.
What's this? Good taster's choice moment between guys.
This is really nice. You got a thing for swans? Is this like a fetish? It's something like maybe we need to devote some time to?
Thought about what you said to me the other day about my painting. Stayed up half the night thinking about it. Something occurred to me. I fell into a deep, peaceful sleep and haven't thought about you since. You know what occurred to me?
No.
You're just a kid. You don't have the faintest idea of what you're talking about.
Why, thank you.
It's all right. You've never been out of Boston.
Nope.
So if I asked you about art, you'd probably give me the skinny on every art book ever written. Michelangelo. You know a lot about him. Life's work, political aspirations, him and the Pope, sexual orientation, the whole works, right? I bet you can't tell me what it smells like in the Sistine Chapel. You've never actually stood there and looked up at that beautiful ceiling. Seen that. I ask you about war, you'd probably throw Shakespeare at me, right? Once more into the breach, dear friends. But you've never been near one. You've never held your best friend's head in your lap and watch him gasp his last breath looking to you for help. When I ask you about love, you probably quote me a sonnet. But that you've never looked at a woman and been totally vulnerable. Known someone that could level you with her eyes. Feeling like God put an angel on earth just for you. Who could rescue you from the depths of hell. And you wouldn't know what it's like to be her angel. To have that love for her be there forever. Through anything. Through cancer. And you would know about sleeping sitting up in a hospital room for 2 months holding her hand because the doctors could see in your eyes that the terms visiting hours don't apply to you. You don't know about real loss because that only occurs when you love something more than you love yourself. I doubt you've ever dared to love anybody that much.
Here's the thing about Will is he may know so much about life and think he has everything there is to know. He may be smarter than his therapist, but Will's never really lived because he's never really embraced his story. He's never really embraced who he was, but he was happy with this gift, and this gift of this intellect, knowing more than everybody, was what gave him his worth. And he's never really lived. He's never known what it's like to love someone. He's never known what it's like to really live because he's okay with this gift of putting people down and making them feel small because of his gift. But he's never truly lived. He's never experienced the beauty and goodness of it, living life and those special moments. He just knows about life, but he's never truly lived. Jesus tells a story of a man who has 2 sons. The younger son said to his father,
"Father, give me my share of the estate."
So the father divides the inheritance between the 2 sons. Not long after that, the younger son goes off to a distant country, and there he squandered his wealth in wild living. Everything was gone. So when a severe famine hits the country, he's desperate and he's in trouble. So he hires himself out to a farmer who sends him to feed the pigs. He was so hungry that he longed to eat the food that the pigs were eating. So he came to his senses.
"How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.'"
So as he approaches home, the father sees him in a distance and has deep compassion for him. And the father runs out to the son and hugs him and kisses him. The son starts into his apology to the father, but the father cuts him off and shouts to his servants,
"Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a robe on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. This son of mine is dead and is alive again, but he was lost and now is found."
But when the elder son hears what's going on, he's angry and he's resentful.
"All these years I've been slaving for you and have never disobeyed you. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. Now this son of yours has come and has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, and now you throw him a party for him."
"My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate, and he is glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost, but now is found."
Thank you, Camille, Will, and Kieran. You can take your seats. So if we're going to decide that life has value not by how much we've accomplished, but by how well we embrace our story and how well we live into our story, which son lived a better life? Well, it's not the younger son, right? Because he's dissatisfied. He's not happy, and so he runs off to a faraway country. He is determined that he's going to find a better story. Maybe he's going off because he's trying to prove his worth. Maybe he's trying to prove, I don't need my family. I'm independent. I don't need these people. Maybe he's trying to prove that he's not boring. Maybe he's seen some of his friends do some other stuff and he's like, I need to be more like them. Maybe he's heard voices that saying, you're not good enough, you're not cool enough, you're not brave enough, you haven't done enough cool things. And maybe he's going out to prove them wrong. Wait till I see what I do. And maybe at the start he's like, okay, this is cool. Yeah, I feel alive. Maybe he starts to feel like he is somebody, like he's awake. And then he realizes this isn't my story. This isn't who I am. This isn't where I belong. He's not awake after all. He's been living a lie. He's been sleepwalking into trying to meet other people's expectations. So it's not the younger son. He hasn't lived a better story. Maybe it's the older son. He looks like he's got a good story. He says, I've never been like my brother. I've never gone off and done these wrong things. I've never squandered my wealth. I've never asked for my inheritance. I have always done what's expected of me. I've been a good son. I've done the right things. But what happens in the story is we see his value, his worth, is on the fact that he's been doing all these good things. He thinks he has to earn the love of his father. He thinks by doing these things, he's got the love of his father. But deep down, he's not happy. Deep down, he is not. This isn't the story that he wants to live. And when he complains to his father, the father says to him, "Son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours." Maybe everything was right there in front of the elder son's eyes, but he couldn't see it because he wasn't happy with it. So maybe neither son embraced their story. Both were dissatisfied, and both had missed the goodness of their life that was right in front of them. So I wonder which son you would be, which daughter you would be. You're the one that would run off, dissatisfied with the story, looking for a bigger, better story, a more exciting story, a wild story to bring home. Or the kid who stayed at home trying to impress and trying to prove that you were worth something by doing all the right things and by being the good kid. And both of them missed the love of their father that was right in front of their eyes. Both of them failed to embrace their story. Often we talk about looking for God, finding God. And in this story, what's happened is God is looking for the sons. Both sons are lost. Both have missed their story. Maybe we miss the point that the mystery of God sometimes is that God is looking for you. God is looking for me. God is waiting for us to be found by God. So how will you measure your life? Will you spend it listening to the voices that say, prove yourself, prove your worth? Or will you spend your life embracing the story, the good and the bad and the ugly, all of it, embracing that this is my story and that God is with me in this story? God is searching for you, calling you by name, wanting to know you, to love you, and find you. So what do you need to do to grow more, to be more, to experience more, to know God more, to know yourself more? What choices do you need to make? And we want to give you an awake challenge this week. I want you to go and do something that reminds you that you're alive, that you're more than your grades and your Instagram and your Facebook or the number of friends you have. Go take time this week to do something that makes you feel alive. It might be going for a walk in the woods and taking time out of your week to do that. It might be taking your bike somewhere. Do something that reminds you that you're more than these things. And as you do it, ask God to find you. Not look for God, but say to God, God, here I am. Find me. That's what we want you to do this week. Not to listen to the voices that say prove yourself, but embrace the story, embrace who you are, embrace who God has made you to be, and ask God to find you in the midst of your story. Grab a hand and we'll pray together to finish.